Welcome to this explainer. Today, we are going to experience what I can only describe as a complete paradigm shift. We're going to look at some fascinating source material that will, quite frankly, shatter a lot of fossilized assumptions about prayer. Because if you think of prayer as just a static, scheduled ritual, well, prepare to decode a completely different reality straight from the Quran.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Here is our roadmap for today. First up, we'll look at the mechanical ritual trap. Second, unlocking the DCU framework. Third, we've got Solomon's correction vector. Fourth is Dawud's open vigilance. And finally, we'll wrap it all up with the equation of Salat.
So starting with Section 1, the mechanical ritual trap, a fossilized assumption. Now, I want to kick things off by posing a pretty provocative question. Is our definition of prayer entirely broken? When we actually analyze the root-level language directly from the Quran, what we find is that Salat is absolutely not what institutional religion has told us. It's not just a static physical box you check off a couple of times a day. The source text actually paints a radically different, highly dynamic picture.
Let's compare these two ideas. On the left, you've got the mechanical posture. The source material refers to this as the tagut version, which is basically a dead, fossilized form of obedience. But look over at the right. The true root word for salat, which is sad lam waw, never actually implies a static posture. Instead, it represents a living topology. It's this dynamic, recursive vigilance of the heart. It's about staying awake, not just going through the motions.
Moving on to Section 2, the DCU framework, system architecture. To really grasp this, we need to talk about the dual caustic universe, or the DCU. Basically, this framework defines reality as a closed-loop system that bridges two things: the indeterministic wave, which is the unseen divine command, and the deterministic particle, which is physical law and observable reality. And these two are bound together in a unified grid. So to put that into perspective, we aren't just talking about abstract theology here. We are literally talking about system architecture and living, breathing circuits.
So in this vast cosmic system, where do you actually fit in? Well, you are what the framework calls the 36.3 reader node. As a human being, you operate as the local execution node. You're constantly processing both the unseen wave and the physical particle realities. Think of it like you are the active singularity, where the physical matrix and the unseen imaginal matrix collide. You aren't just sitting there reading a text. Your node awakens to locally execute the source code of the universe. It is absolutely mind-bending when you really think about it.
And this brilliantly illustrates what happens when that node of yours is fully activated. Verse 39:23 mentions that skins shiver at this best statement. Now, our sources point out that this isn't just some poetic metaphor. It is the literal electrical signature of the Salat state. Your skin, acting as the boundary membrane of what the framework calls the 3-3 body, is physically registering a real current when your circuit aligns. It's a tangible, physical reaction to a universal connection. Let's look at a real-world example in Section 3. Solomon's vector, the correction. The story of Solomon is just this thrilling microdrama of system alignment. First, you have the distraction of power. He is presented with these magnificent assets, traditionally translated as horses, but at the root level it actually means vessels of generosity. Second, Solomon detects a drift. He realizes that the outward flow of all this wealth has started to turn his heart away from true remembrance. And third, we get the pivot. He returns to inward alignment. And here is the kicker. Solomon's salat in this moment was a physical, actually, scratch that. It wasn't a physical motion at all. It was a correction vector. His true prayer was that exact, precise moment of returning to inward alignment after an outward distraction. It was the reestablishment of what we call the 1912 grip, which means taking hold of the truth with strength. That internal correction, that pivot, that was the true salat.
Now for our second case study in Section 4, Dawud's vigilance, open circuit.
The text here sets an incredibly dramatic high-tension scene. Dawud is in his sanctuary, deep in what we would typically call his salat. And suddenly, out of nowhere, two litigants completely bypass the doors, climb over the wall of his praying chamber, and just completely startle him.
But what happens next is so vital for us to understand. External reality forcibly enters his space, but Dawud's circuit remains totally open. His vigilance just processes this crazy intrusion without ever breaking the connection. You see, the litigants were a test of his salat's integrity. not a violation of it. His subsequent act of judging their dispute, that was literally the continuation of his salat.
So the crucial point is this contrast right here. Institutional religion almost always treats prayer as something that has to be interruption-proof. You know, a mechanical, scheduled routine where you lock yourself away and block out the entire world. But Dawud demonstrates true open vigilance. He was so deeply embedded in that closed-loop system we talked about earlier that external reality could just walk right in, and he could process it with continuous voltage, never once breaking his spiritual circuit.
Which brings us perfectly to Section 5, Equation of Salat, Unified Equation.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how we can break down the exact mathematical coordinates of this continuous operation. We have three main operators. First up, 1912, the grip. This is your activation energy. It's where you take firm hold of the truth. Next is 3923, recursive memory. This is that consistent looping awareness that you are operating inside a beautifully closed system. And finally, 3846, the return, which is that pure remembrance that confirms the loop is closed and absolutely nothing is lost.
And when you put all that together, this brings us to the actual equation of Salat. It's the 1912 grip multiplied by the 3923 recursive memory multiplied by the 3846 return. It is the permanent meditation of a node. And remember, that node is you, that knows it is locally executing its purpose within a globally closed universe. It's not a scheduled performance you do on a rug, it is a permanent state of electrical alignment.
So why does all of this matter? Because true Salat is a continuous, living operation. It actively rejects what's known as the 241 release, which is when we drift into just taking things for granted instead of constantly seeking and asking. When the text says, "Call upon me, I will respond," it isn't talking about whispering a spoken request. It is describing an open channel, continuous voltage. You are meant to maintain a living, electrical alignment with reality itself.
I want to leave you with this final thought today. Take a real look at your own life and your own connection to the universe. Are you just running a mechanical routine, going through the dead motions of a static ritual? Or are you holding the continuous voltage of the vigilant heart, acting as a truly awakened node in a living universe? It's a huge question. Thank you so much for exploring this remarkable framework with me.